So our equipment stuff.
Yes. I hope this isn't in your way.
I'll just ignore it.
It's better light-wise, and then I don't film everyone so that it's just me.
Ah.
You're not like obligated to be in the video. So come up and get a block of wood, a campfire log. We're gonna do some overhead stuff with it, so if you have any shoulder stuff, get a smaller one. We're also gonna use them for some capture and standing practice. Oh, it's perfect, there's 5 logs in 5. Nobody else can come.
Well, I can fake it with, this balloon thing.
Just like, it was a good trip. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna, as they're getting my mom settled, let's say names, because we have a new person, Bethany. Also, say if you have any particular thing you want to work on, or injury, just whatever would be helpful to integrate into class.
Pretty much general overall alignment, but I do have like I don't know if it's really a sore spot. It's a sore spot if I do certain things right here. So I feel like core.
Yeah, we're actually doing like a pelvis and core class today.
Okay.
If you have any pains or need modifications, you can ask me or Joanne.
Okay.
Or really anybody, but we're probably the best go-to. Okay, Abby.
Suzanne, I'm just always here.
Thank you for being here.
I'm Sandra, pregnant, so lots
Are you?
of pelvic.
Bigger
Work.
for the last 2 weeks than
I know.
missed last week, so.
I'm excited, Peru finally won a game.
Oh, did they?
Now that they're eliminated
That's
from the
awesome.
World Cup.
I hear about Germany, obviously not Peru,
Oh,
so.
well, because Germany goes every time, and they won last time.
Yeah.
Peru hasn't gone in 35 years.
That's awesome.
So they did go and.
They qualified, but they lost all their games, and then this was they still play it even though they're eliminated, but they won.
So I'm Joanne. What was the question? I was
Anything
hoping.
you want?
Anything I want to work on?
Or any, body pain situation.
Yeah, just pelvic floor probably.
Good class for you. Mom. Sherry.
Oh, Sherry.
You guys can call her Mom. For your mouth. Kate? No, I think, so we're gonna do pelvis and core stuff. We're gonna start with a calf stretch. And you guys can do a calf stretch with this, or you can do it with the log. So, I don't have a log because I only have 5, which is great that there's 5 people. But, it's the same thing as the half dome. So you step up onto, so that your foot is kind of at the top, and then step your foot just a little bit forward, and why don't you guys first just look down and try to align the outside edges of your feet straight. So if you have, I actually got these, we had campfire vlogs, these at where we were camping this weekend, and I couldn't actually find my half dome thing before we were going, which didn't really matter, I was like, whatever. And then we had these, and I was like, that's perfect. That's so cool.
They are pretty perfect.
And they're actually, we're gonna do some standing balance on them too. They're really great, and we're gonna do like a strength thing. So now you guys get the benefit of my camping trip. So have your feet about AS-IS width apart. So if you find your hip points, you can direct your hands downward and kind of look, see if that looks like I'm a little wide. And then if you feel like this is a good point to end for your stretch, you can stay here. If you want, you can step a little more forward. And you can check some other things, like if this is totally new. Have you done this work before, or?
Not really.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure I give options if this is totally new. So if it's totally new, you can just go with this. You can also reach down and feel, are your quads relaxed? Can you relax your quads? If you guys know how to do like kneecap release, you can lift and lower your kneecaps. And then where should your weight be?
Your heels.
Your heels, yeah.
Between both feet,
Between both feet, yeah.
or even on both feet.
Yeah, probably, I mean, I think a little more on your, whichever one is back, if you're like this.
Right.
Even if you're a little stepped forward, you probably will have a little more weight on this. So you guys switch sides, and why don't you go sideways to the mirror now? So you can check out some alignment points in the mirror. And start again by looking down and straightening the outside edges of your feet. And once you've accomplished that, you can try to do your feet ASIS width apart. Yeah. And then look in the mirror and try to see, maybe play with your weight a little. Put your weight forward and see how that feels and what it does. And then put your weight back. See how that feels. Can your weight stay back? And then can you step forward a little bit and keep your weight back? Joanne's trying to stand on one leg.
One leg so I could take my sock off.
Well, you
So
could.
close.
I mean, that's actually, so then you're making it more of an active stretch. Try that. You can lift one leg. Then you're like standing on a dorsiflexed leg, like it's like you're stepping up, you know, it's like you're climbing a hill all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That's actually
Good size.
good variation, thank you.
You're welcome, no
Love
charge.
that. No charge today. Okay. So then, now you guys remember, so last week, all we did was hip hinging, right? Was that like, that point was kind of driven home. I'm really actually excited to show you this class. So let's do a hip hinge before we do double calf stretch. Do sideways to mirror. And face you guys for a second. So when you do a hip hinge, you should be keeping everything in one piece on top and hinging at your hip, which is easier said than done. So if you, like my shirt's a little loose, I'm gonna put my hands there to see better. I want nothing to change in my spine. The things that will often change are if I round my spine, it starts to look like that. So look in the mirror and maybe try it a few ways. Like try to intentionally let your spine round so you can see what that looks like and feel it. And if you guys need to move around for seeing in the mirror, feel free to do that. The other thing that I think is really interesting to really observe and try is try a hip hinge with putting your weight forward. We did that last week, but I think it's a really good point to make that when you hip hinge, if your weight is forward, it's very difficult to do that as far with spine stability. So if you're naturally letting, like Abby, you're doing a really good job of letting your weight go back, which gives you more freedom in your hip because it's like you're letting your center of mass travel backwards to counterbalance going forwards. So it's just easier to get the strength and flexibility to do that. So now we're gonna add a calf stretch to that. So take your half dome, and you guys, this one's really good with the log because the log's a little wider than the foam. So put your feet up on the log or the foam, and you're gonna put both feet up, and then do your hip hinge. And only going to the limit, like this is my limit, where your tail is up, your weight is back, your spine is not round, and if you can feel, try to get your ribs to drop a little bit. So I'm gonna, yeah, so that you do like that just a little, so that you're not thrusting your ribs, and then lift your tail just a little, yeah. So it's about like a lifting there, and then, yeah, that's great. And so small is okay to go in a small hip hinge. So now I want you guys to actually rotate the logs around the circle because they're all different. And we'll come back to the shoulder stuff and I'll make sure that everyone gets the right one for strength. So just give it to your counterclockwise person. Because I want you guys to feel the difference with a different height. So with that really tall one, you might have to back your feet up a little bit and hinge a lot less. And with the small one, you might be able to hinge more and have your feet higher. So just try it a different way. And try to really look and make sure that your pelvis is not tucked under. So actually go into your hinge and tuck your tail under and then bring your tail up. Just try it so you can really feel, because your tail should be really up towards the ceiling. Because that's what's going to give you the stretch, the length in your hamstrings. It's going to make them work in this particular way. We're trying to get them, they're working because they're holding you up, but they're lengthening. And if your tail is not up, then you're keeping the top of them short. So try to get the tension by doing that. But don't go further unless you can do it like this one. You feel that? Then it's like higher up.
I'm nervous about putting on the mat.
Oh, yeah.
In case there's pitch, because I
Oh,
got some
yeah.
pitch on my foot now.
That's a good idea.
So there is wipes in the bathroom if you
Okay.
have it.
So paying attention to the pitch factor of the logs, please. It's okay. Okay, so come back up from there. Then let's leave these alone for a second. Let's just do a lunge stretch. So you're gonna have your blanket for your knee. And let's actually practice coming down into the lunge, unless you have a situation that prevents it. So stepping your legs apart and trying to slowly lower yourself down until your knee touches. Now, look in the mirror, make sure that your front leg stays at a 90-degree angle. So just try to come down so that once you end, you're not here, that you're always like this. You can try it, let's try it one more time. Now, can you also keep your weight in the heel the whole time? So, weight in the heel. Take your block or your dome, either one, and give yourself a little assist for a second. And I'm gonna actually give you a double assist. This is a little. There. Yeah. It just looks like it, you got extra load. Okay, so with that assist, I want you to practice keeping your weight in the heel as you go up and down. Because watch this. That's easy, but can you guys see that that's putting a lot of pressure into my knee? So if you keep your weight in the heel, I want this here just to give myself a little balance to come up and down. So it's the same principle of keeping your weight back that you were just doing in hip hinge and in calf stretch. And really look in the mirror and see, is your shin vertical the whole way down and the whole way up? And then let's switch sides.
Well, the whole way up, doesn't it go back? It doesn't go up.
Yeah. It doesn't go, yeah. It doesn't go, it will not be vertical once you're like this.
Right.
But it also shouldn't be going, yeah. So then the other one. And really use the mirror and try to see, sometimes just thinking of making an impression with your front leg heel will help. And usually, once you're getting, if you're getting this working, your torso will also stay upright, correct? Because you're not tipping No, we're not hip hinging. That is what we're not doing right now. So going up and down, yeah. And once you really get it working, can you guys feel there's like more stretch on the back leg? Maybe work on the back leg with the stretch. Work on the front leg. In a lot of parts, I feel my quad, my hamstring, my glute.
I started doing this across the grass in the backyard, just one step. Like this,
Well, yeah.
and go down, and I'm sore the next day, cause
Yeah.
I did it. It's great, a lot of fun.
So come down to the first side, and let's actually take it into a stretch now. So, you guys can keep your assist there if you want. So thinking about, again, having front leg 90-degree angle, and look in the mirror and hike your hip up, whichever side you're on is fine. Try to get your hips even. So even in this plane, and even in this plane, going like you're twisting, and also even so that you're not like arched back, tail out now. We're actually trying to drop the tail a little bit. So one thing I like to think about is if you think about you have horse reins attached to your ASIS points, like somebody has reins and they're like pulling both of your hip bones forward. And then again, make sure you're 90 degrees on your front leg. You can always like, inch your foot forward. All have a stretch. Feels good. You guys look good. That looks really good, Sandra. So then have your little balance assist close by. And now you're gonna lean forward a little bit. And you're gonna think about lowering your pelvis towards the floor as you extend your back leg. And then bend your knee. So think about your pelvis. So it's easy if your pelvis lifts, but think about your pelvis going towards the floor as your leg straightens. And now you can hinge your body forward a little bit, especially to get on the assist. That's not easy, right? If you do it that way. So do it a few times and look in the mirror and see, is your pelvis lifting? Another way to think about that is imagine if somebody takes your heel and kind of pulls it back behind you. So it's like you would do this with the reformer. So the carriage would go back behind you. So if you imagine that this is mobile and that it actually slides out, but your pelvis goes forward, it's like you're doing kind of an extra long lunge. Yeah, let's switch sides. You guys okay?
That knee was.
But it's not easy, right? Like,
No, it's.
you guys aren't looking at me with confusion, right? You're looking at me with, this is difficult.
Yeah, that's pretty hard.
It's difficult when you do it with those details.
Yeah.
Because there's like a ton of times I'll come up and down off the floor all day and I'm like, oh, this is easy. And then if I actually pay attention to doing it that way,
Yeah.
or doing a stretch, it's hard. So first find the stretch and move your pelvis around so you're finding out, usually this hip hikes a little bit. You drop the front leg pelvis towards the ground. And can you try to keep both pelvic halves from one rotating forward, one rotating back. And then think about drawing both hip bones forward. Oh, and actually, we didn't do this on the other side, but let's do this now. If you think about your knee that's on the blanket, trying to push the blanket behind you, that's the beginning of that action we're doing with the long leg. So that actually would have helped you guys on the other side, sorry. If you do that first, and you start straightening your leg that way, it's gonna help you a lot. It'll make it a deeper stretch. Joanne's making the faces at me.
Wow, making the faces at me.
At your knee. The next one actually might be better for it too. So come forward, so you hinge your body a little bit forward to be on your assist. And I think be on the side of the drop down knee. So the hand of the knee that's on the floor is with the assist, or you can have two assists. And then think of that action of trying to push the blanket behind you as what starts extending your leg. Can you extend your leg but keep your pelvis from lifting? And just do that a few times. And you don't have to extend all the way. If it gets to the point where you feel like, oh, that's my limit, and then my pelvis lifts, or the other cue is like, I'm actually trying to lean on this side really hard, and on the other side I can keep, so pay attention to how much you're leaning on your prop. Because that might tell you you need to go a little smaller. Because if you're really like, ugh, I gotta get this done. So that's a good thing to do every day. Until you can get all the way straight and it feels like a dream.
Yeah. Just like a dream.
Just like a dream.
Or you wish you were dreaming.
Having a
This is a
nightmare.
bad dream. The first time I learned how to do that was on a reformer, which is, you know, this carriage that moves behind you. And it was a photo shoot for a Pilates teacher training manual where they were photoing me. And I have not done it in that way before with that specific cueing.
One foot's on the floor, right?
One foot's on the floor, one foot's on the
carriage,
reformer.
right.
So it's like that, but you have actually a movable and your leg's higher. It's like really hard. But it was like really difficult to do that part. And then realize, oh, this is really cool. I haven't learned this before. So fold your blanket and we're gonna do like a little bolstered reclining position. Have your half dome on top of your blanket and your log will be nearby. I need to demonstrate and actually rotate logs. So I'm gonna use yours to demonstrate and let me get this. Your shoulders are okay.
I think so, but I'll find out.
You guys might have to trade it. We'll see. Okay, so before you come down, I just want to show you so you can see where we're going. We're gonna do like a sort of normal, just bolstered psoas release, and then we're gonna do a little series that we've done of shoulder stretch. I mentioned this before to bring a water bottle, and I forgot to check in with you guys. You'll have the log here, and you'll go out to the side. So one hand is weighted, which takes a lot of work in your core to keep you from going with the log. And then you come up, you'll switch hands. Then we're gonna do, with both hands, bringing the log overhead. And the entire point of bringing the log overhead is not to do this, because that's all of a sudden very easy. If you keep your ribs in line with your pelvis, it is much more difficult in the upper abdominals, and actually the entire abdominal space is working. We're gonna try different hand grips, different things like that. So first, just log nearby and lying back. Have your half dome right at the top of the blanket so that your shoulders are a little bit bolstered. So that you've got, yeah. And anyone, raise your hand if you need a second blanket. Do you want a second one, Sandra? Maybe. I think I'll get you one. It's actually, so as release wise, it's definitely better to be a little more bolstered depending on how long your psoas is. But for the log overhead one, it's actually more ideal to be a little higher because it'll help you get your position. I'm gonna give you one more.
Learning how it goes and all that shit.
And then I'll scoop up just a little more. So towards his head. Yeah, and so you get like this, exactly. Okay. So
This should be like trying to get my shoulders.
Shoulders are up and ribs are 20 grams down.
So the bolstering should be, we didn't do the whole way of getting into it by lying back that we've done sometimes, but as you're there, you can feel if your ribs are dropping. If you're in a position where you're bolstered and you're lying back and your ribs are still really sticking up, you might actually need to bolster higher. So you guys all look really good. Does that feel okay? How's your feet?
their little,
Yeah.
fans end up like hurting.
I know, well, we can like put them on your side and like roll you around. Like drag you around, do some like nice leg stretches for you. Okay, so just take a couple big breaths, and what I want you to feel as you're breathing there is, where are you breathing in your ribs? So if you take a really huge breath, do you feel the breath in the front of the ribs? Do you feel the breath in the sides of the ribs? Sometimes you feel the breath in your neck, by your top ribs. And try now to get your breath to go side to side. So remember, I think, was it last week we put the band around our rib cage, around our bra line? Like you're breathing into that band, like you've got something tied right around your ribs. Do that a couple times. So then take your arms up in front of your chest. And first you're gonna, with straight arms, press your hands and your wrists and your elbows together. And to get your elbows together, everything will bend a little bit. And then open your arms out to the side. Keeping a little bend is good. And then arms come back up. And this time press with more of a bend. So bend all the way so that your thumb side of forearms is right over your face. Yeah, and press. Hands, wrists, elbows. Try to really press your wrists. That's a hard point to get flat. And that makes it more stringy. And then open. This time keeping your arms 90-degree angles. So it's like a little frame for your head. Once again, press. And then open. Once you're in this position where you have a frame around your head, you're going to move your arms a little overhead and a little down towards your waist without letting your arms rotate. So imagine that your arms are in two panes of glass, in between two panes of glass, so that your hands don't move away from the floor as you move your arms up and down. So that it's almost like W arms, that you go like that, and then like that. So they track right beside your body. And your elbows also won't do straightening as you come down. But it's like if I had a string on your elbow and pulled it straight down, and then a string on your finger, and pulled it straight up. Good. So now you're gonna take your log, bring your arms back down. Take your log, this is my imaginary log yoga mat, and you're gonna bring your arms straight up to the same sort of position. Now for this one, especially the first time, don't go very far open. So you're gonna take both arms in the air, one hand is holding an object with some weight, and you're gonna open out, trying to see where is the limit that you can go with control. So right here, I feel like I kind of start to roll towards the object, towards the weight, and I brace with my opposite leg, like I'm kind of digging into the floor. So that's where I'm gonna stop, and then come back up. Then I'm gonna switch hands. I'm gonna give the object my other hand, and I'm gonna open out. And actually a yoga mat works just fine for this, FYI. Water bottle works great because the water kind of moves around. Doing the same thing, coming back up, and just trying to notice where is the limit that you go to. And it's funny because one side for me is the limit is much sooner, and the other side I can go much further. Now that's not actually funny because everyone's asymmetrical. Shouldn't surprise me at all, right?
So we're switching arms every time.
Yeah, switching arms every time. And trying to keep your elbows straight but not hyperextended. So if your elbows tend to hyperextend a lot, it might feel a little more bent or actually be a little bit bent. Yeah, good. Then bring the log into your hands. Let's do an outside of the log grip to start. And now going overhead and seeing where is the point that your ribs want to pop up. Bring the log back up and kind of set your ribs when you start there. Try to feel, can you exhale and drop your ribs towards your pelvis just a little bit so that you start with a little more sensation there. If you are not pregnant, if you don't have a diastasis recti going on, lift your head up when you're in the up position, look at your ribs, and try to put the log overhead while watching your ribs. And just, if you don't know, diastasis recti is your abdominals separate a little bit.
Or a hernia.
Or a hernia, which is a hernia. Diastasis is a hernia. Kind of a hernia. Okay, good. Switch your grip. So why don't we do underhand grip? Do you guys feel that working in your upper abdominals? Because if you don't feel it working, there's probably an adjustment we can make to your position. And try the same thing. This time, I want you to also pay attention to what your shoulders are doing. So, as you go overhead, try to shrug your shoulders down away from your ears, which also will help connect into your ribs.
So probably when else, widen your hands, right? To make them more parallel versus close together?
Yes.
Yeah.
How's that feel? Just you, I think it might be too much like it. I just am looking at your position and seeing your, there, try that. I don't know your body, so yeah, that looks better. I feel more comfy. Yeah, and then you have to work a little bit harder that way. Try to really feel like you draw. Yeah. And then let's switch our grip one more time. We'll do overhand. So that you're like this. Yeah. So your palms facing away from you. And you could have your thumbs with your fingers. I have to have my thumbs around the yoga mat or it might unroll or break. Yeah. With the log, you probably could just set your thumbs with your fingers, but you can try both ways. It's going to be different each way. And one thing you can try is if it feels like it's difficult to connect your ribs down or you're not getting that sensation, you can try to exhale as you go overhead. Yeah. Okay, so Sandra's gonna roll onto your side and I'm gonna show her a quad stretch. You guys can put your legs down. Actually, let's all do a quad stretch because we might as well. You can stay on that side, Sandra, since you're already there. I'll talk you through it. Okay, so you guys roll towards me or away from me, it doesn't matter. You're gonna bend your knees up towards your chest a little bit. You're gonna reach down and grab the top ankle. And you're gonna try to find a quad stretch here where your knee is parallel so that your knee isn't coming up towards the ceiling, that your knee is pointing straight down beneath you. And paying attention also to where your pelvis is. So if you bring the leg really far back, like it's straight down, you might be really arching your back and thrusting your ribs. Try to bring the leg only to a point where you can keep a neutral pelvis, but in this case might feel like you have to actively tuck your tail under a bit to maintain that because of what we're stretching. And try to feel that